Welcome to the Recess Life Podcast. This is the place where we explore play and what it means to get back to your inner child. I'm Louise, your host. Join me as I chat with teachers, entrepreneurs, artists, and thought leaders about how we can live a life of more play and impact. Let's get it started. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Recess Life Podcast. It is so good to be here with all of you. Since I released the last episode, a lot has happened. I did a short little season right when we had to go into quarantine for coronavirus. I chatted with other creatives to ask them how they are dealing with being in quarantine. How are they thinking about creativity during this time, and what can we learn from them? How have they been able to navigate uncertainty and still stay playful and creative? So if you haven't had a chance to listen to those episodes, feel free. They are the last episodes that were posted. But since then, a lot has happened. And I had decided that it wasn't quite the right time to release the episodes I had recorded prior to coronavirus. I really just wanted to take a step back and figure out what felt right to release. So I took some time to experiment with different kinds of content on social media and TikTok. That's been a lot of fun. But a couple really interesting things happened during this time of experimentation. One was that someone from my past posted something on Facebook that got me really riled up. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So this person, her name is Alison Calhoun. I know her from 20 years ago. Alison was my high school Bible study leader. I was part of a Christian youth group in high school, and this Bible study was through that. Bible study was also known as small group. Those terms can be used interchangeably. And for a time, Alison was a really big influence on my life. For about 3 solid years, I saw her and 5 other girls every week where we would get together and talk about the Bible and talk about how it impacted our lives and talk about how to be better Christians. From the time we were 14 to 17 years old, Alison was our Bible study leader. Alison was just 19 herself when she first started leading us. She was such a wonderful presence in my life at that time. So naturally, after high school, I think I saw her maybe one other time, but we lost touch because life happens. After college, I didn't really identify as a Christian anymore. We just lost touch over the years, but there was never any ill will, no falling out, nothing like that. After I released the episode for the most recent season, I read this post from Alison on Facebook. When you stand up for something you believe in and people don't like it, you've officially detached yourself from the chains of approval. Feels darn good. Keeping abortion clinics open as an essential business during a pandemic that threatens the lives of the vulnerable is the biggest double standard on the face of this planet. Please don't tell me this shutdown is a good idea because it saves lives, but then fund the killing of unborn babies. Parentheses, yes, I realize you can't catch an abortion, but you darn well can support it, making it a pandemic. You've lost my trust, you've lost credibility, you've raised many eyebrows as to what the agenda is behind this virus. This is why I have not and will not trust your numbers and the rigging of them. Good day. Parentheses, insert an image of me skipping away. So when I read that post, I felt a gamut of emotions run through me. My initial thoughts were, this is why I don't call myself a Christian anymore. Because Christianity is all about being closed-minded and having a certain set of beliefs that excludes people, and it doesn't make sense to me. And I realized that that wasn't fair. I had to step back and realize, one, this is her perspective and it's not necessarily that of all Christians. And number two, why was I feeling all of this emotion? Because while I don't identify as a Christian anymore, I also feel very strongly that people are welcome to their own beliefs as long as it doesn't hurt others. But something was different about this feeling because it was very visceral. I realized that it felt like a stranger had written this post, and I wasn't sure what to do with that information. I couldn't quite reconcile the person that had meant so much to me in high school with the person who wrote this post. The post felt very angry and judgmental, and there was a sense of superiority with it that was something that I really struggled with in Christianity. I realized that there was an opportunity to have a conversation and to perhaps put into practice what I talk about with play. Play comes down to humanizing those around us so that we can have a meaningful connection, and play helps us to look at each other like we did when we were kids, when we didn't have judgments against each other. So after sitting with it for a few days, I decided to reach out to her and to see if she'd be willing to have a conversation in the spirit of understanding each other, and to see if she would be willing to participate in some play-based activity with me to get us to have a meaningful conversation. So what you're going to hear is the result of that. It is a two-part conversation that was structured in a very specific way so that the conversation wouldn't go off the rails, so to speak. Much like how play works, the conversation wasn't about winning any argument or about showing each other who's boss or showing each other who's right. It was about understanding and connection. So I had three main things I wanted to accomplish with the conversation. Number one was to reminisce and reconnect about the past, around the good memories that we shared when I was in high school and she was my Bible study leader. Number two was to catch up about what our lives look like today and to understand what's the latest update with our lives. And number three, to understand what we value and what's important to each of us in the context of coronavirus and what coronavirus has taught us. I had to really decide what is my intention in having this conversation with her and how would I structure it to reach that intention. Ultimately, I decided that my intention was to reconnect with her and to understand what she was thinking and feeling and what might have led her to write this post. I decided it wouldn't be my intention to try and change her mind, but rather to understand. I would share my beliefs around where I was coming from, but it would not be done in a way where I expected her to feel the same way or that I expected her to agree with me. So I was very strategic about crafting the conversation so that it would reach that intention. The conversation was broken up into 6 sections. You'll hear sections 1 through 4 in this first part and sections 5 through 6 in the second part. Section 1 was about laying the foundation. So I presented a couple play-based games and activities to help us reconnect and get on the same page and sort of break the ice, because we were potentially entering into a very charged conversation and I wanted us to both feel relaxed and to both feel like we're on the same team and we're not against each other. So I pulled a couple games from the world of improv to help us connect and start off on the right foot. Section 2 was to reintroduce ourselves to each other. We haven't talked in over 15 years, so it was the opportunity to reintroduce ourselves to each other like we would be as strangers. Section 3 was to reminisce about the past and to revisit old memories from when she was my small group leader and to share more about where we were and who we were at that time 20 years ago and to share our impressions of each other during that time. Section 4 was to catch up about our lives today. So that was to understand what our lives look like now, what accomplishments we're proud of, what is important to us. Section 5 focused on understanding what she wrote in the post, to understand what we believe to be true about coronavirus and why we share the perspectives that we do and where we're coming from in terms of our beliefs. Section 6 was to reflect on the experience together and reflect back what we see in each other and what we are grateful for after having had the conversation. I created questions for each section that I sent to her in advance so that she had time to prepare them, and I also answered the questions as well. At the end of each section, we had the opportunity to ask more questions around what the other person said, to clarify anything we weren't sure of, and to have a deeper discussion on our perspectives. I crafted the structure of our conversation really intentionally so that there was a container to have a productive conversation because we had so much ground to cover. It was a really nerve-wracking experience all the way through, from deciding to reach out to her, to crafting the questions, to getting on the call with her, and it was just an experience that I am very grateful for at the end of the day. Alison is married to Ben. He is the lead singer of a band called Citizen Way. They are a Christian rock band, so you'll hear us reference him a couple times. At one point in the conversation, I had asked that we bring pictures or videos to share more about our life with each other and to give us some visuals to understand what our lives look like today. So if you're listening to this as a podcast, you'll obviously not see those pictures or videos, but if you decide to check out the YouTube video, you'll see what we're talking about. And in part 2, I'll talk a little bit more about what I learned and how the whole experience was really transformative for me. So make sure you listen to that. The second thing that's happened since I released my last episode is that there has been a big waking up and reckoning with racism since George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery's murders were made public. This has been a big wake-up call for myself and people I know in my community to recognize that we have been so asleep to a lot of the issues of racism in this country. So I've been taking lots of time to step back and re-examine where I have gone wrong and how I may have contributed to what our systems are like today. And I'm still very much deep in that process, and frankly, it's going to be a lifelong journey at this point. I'm doing a lot of listening, educating myself, having conversations that are uncomfortable, and really examining everything from the inside out. So when Alison and I had our conversation, it was right about the time George Floyd was killed, and so it was not a part of our conversation. I do hope to have this conversation in relation to how it relates to my podcast and what I talk about in the future, so stay tuned for that, but that was not a part of this conversation with Alison and myself. I do want to take a moment to thank a few people that helped me navigate this conversation and think through how to approach it. Jeff Harry from Rediscover Your Play, John Durso, he's on the board of an organization called Bridging the Divide, Connor Moore, who is the host of a few podcasts, The O'Connor Wanders Experience, The Realness, and Okay Babe, Gary Hirsch from On Your Feet, not to mention a few personal friends, Zach Clark, Matt Shar, my roommates Helen Wu and Esther O. Really thank all of you for helping me to process what I was feeling and how I should approach this conversation. I'll be sure to bring this all back to how it connects to play and how it's helping me to think about play differently. So enjoy this first part of a 2-part conversation with Alison Calhoun. You saw the whole little outline that I mapped out.
Yeah.
It's typically a little more structured than I typically do my conversations, but I figured this will give us a little bit more direction and guidance and everything.
Well, I was just going to tell you, I'm so glad that you connected with me because you had some questions, I know, about something that I had stated. And I just was like, I love her. I love that she was just so honest to be like, kind of was on a roller coaster of emotions with something you said, was a little nervous to, contact you about it. But I'm like, I'm so glad you didn't like X out my face in your heart. And you were just like, I'm going to talk to her. And I'm like, that is like the healthiest. And I so appreciate that.
And I think there's just so much of what you were saying, happening around, when there's challenging conversations or challenging feelings that come up, whether that's just people that are in our own lives that we see on a day-to-day, that, tension comes up or things that are challenging, and it's so easy to just avoid or decide that it's not worth talking about. If I want things to be different, I have to, model that myself.
I love that you didn't like shut the conversation off. I'm like, you're like, let's turn it on. Let's talk about it. Let's,
How I see this going is we'll play a couple games that I've learned in improv workshops, and then we'll talk about what our goals are. Well, we can do that now, actually. Goals, from what I know them to be, that I really want to reconnect, first of all, with you. That's primary. Catch up on what our lives are like today and what all has happened before we got here today, before COVID, and understand what the other really cares about and values right now in the context of what's happening in this pandemic. In agreements, being curious and listening to understand, enjoying respect and suspending judgment, be authentic and welcome that from each other. Let the other complete their thought and be open to possibility for where this conversation will go.
Yeah.
So does that sound good to you?
I'm in.
Awesome. Okay. So the first game that I thought we would play, it's usually called 10 things, but we're going to modify it a little bit. So what this is we're going to try to find as many things we have in common, either like really obvious or really obscure, as many as we can in 2 minutes. And we're going to try to set a goal for ourselves, come up with 20 things. That might be too much, but 5 things, 10 things. And then we're going to see if we can try to meet our goal in 2 minutes.
Oh, I like it. And does it work like you say things you like and I go, me too?
We can just kind of go back and forth like, okay, I like this. How about you? And we can sort of totally just like go off the cuff. And then we'll see if we can meet our goal. Well, how many do you think we can get in 2 minutes?
I think we can find 10 things.
I think so. I think that's totally reasonable. In 2 minutes? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to throw a timer on, and then we're just going to go. Okay. Go. Okay.
Do you like kombucha?
Oh, I love kombucha. Okay. Yes. I think in general, like from what I've seen in other posts, like you're about healthy living and like whole living and eating healthy food.
I'm gluten-free. I'm doing the paleo thing right now.
Oh, nice.
I work on some autoimmune issues, but
yeah, I tried to do like a paleo-ish version of my diet. So
let's give that. Let's give ourselves one.
Okay, cool. So kombucha and paleo-ish.
I like California. I like going.
Oh yeah.
Don't you live there?
I do, yeah. I live in the Bay Area. I live in San Francisco. Yep.
Okay. Well, that counts.
We both love music, obviously, because your husband is.
Yes. I love my husband maybe more than music, but let's still give it to ourselves. Okay, what else?
We have 49 seconds.
I love peanut butter cups. I can't eat them though.
Oh, really? Oh, yes, I do love peanut butter cups. Do you have any favorite shows you're watching right now?
Ooh. Okay, well, forever I watched Friends.
Oh, of course.
I don't really watch. I don't have access to it right now.
Yeah, that was my favorite show for sure. Yeah. Have you any sort of like physical activity? We both like to dance.
I love Pure Barre. We both like to dance.
To dance. Okay.
I do Pure Barre.
Okay.
I like the water.
3 more. The water?
Like the water. Like I want to look for dolphins all day long.
Yep. Okay. 2 more.
You both like the mountains? Do you like the mountains?
I like the mountain. I like hiking. I'm not like a mountain backpacking. Oh, our time's up.
Oh. Did we get 8?
We got 8. So kombucha. We both have a paleo-ish diet. We both love California and music, peanut butter cups, watching Friends, dance, and being at the water. So
I mean, that's pretty good.
Pretty good in 2 minutes. Pretty good. Okay, awesome. Yeah, that was fun. That was fun.
A lot of it was revolved around food. That doesn't surprise me.
Honestly, I was like, okay, 3 out of the 8 are food. Hey, I'm okay with that. Okay, the other game I had 2 truths and a lie.
Oh yeah,
played that one before.
My daughters all the time.
Oh, awesome. How do you feel about playing that one? And we can take a couple minutes for you to think about it. And I need to rethink mine too.
We can do it. I can usually come up with something on the fly.
Okay.
I'm not great. You go first.
Okay. I danced in Oprah's opening act. I've been to 50 countries and I haven't had a real job in over 10 years.
I'm going to say the Oprah one.
No, that one's true.
Okay, so then the third one. I feel like you've traveled to 50 countries.
I haven't. Not 50 countries. No, just about 30.
Okay. I was like, okay. Man, that was the one I was like sure of. I'm like,
really? Yeah, you always got to make that one a little tricky, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I danced in. So Oprah had this tour that she did where she traveled around the country and was doing speaking beginning of the year before this all hit. And one of her partners was this organization called Daybreaker. It's this morning dance party community that happens all over the country. And she partnered with them to be the opening act for her show, to get people like pumped up. And I'm a pretty big part of the community in San Francisco, and I'm friends with the event producer. And so when I heard that was happening, I said, let me know if you need any one of your friends to get involved. And it turns out that they needed like dancers to kind of be in the crowd to pump people up and to get everyone excited for Oprah. Not that you need to get anyone excited for Oprah that's there to see her, but that was really fun.
Did you take dance classes, and did you do dance? Like, did you go to college? I don't even know that. Did you dance in college?
So I took quite a few dance classes in college as my elective classes, but I didn't really start taking dance classes until I moved to San Francisco about 10 years ago. And that's been a pretty consistent part of my life since then, but it wasn't really until then.
Yeah. Wow. Do you know that I did a dance show when I was 6 months pregnant with Ava, who's now 12? I had to dress up in like this pirate costume, and I did a hip hop show. It was funny because there were parts where you were down and then you had to get back up. And I was like clearly the pregnant one who took like a second too long to get up.
So pop back up right away.
Yeah, I was a little out of sync. I was just like, I'm so glad I did it, but it was really funny.
Oh my gosh, I want to see video of that.
I would like to find the video. I can't find it anywhere because I'm like, that baby needs to go on YouTube. I'm gonna go, okay?
Okay, yes.
So my husband has given me some piano lessons. I worked at SeaWorld, and I lived in Pennsylvania for a little blip of time.
Oh man, those could all be true. The tricky thing. I'm going to say the Pennsylvania one.
Oh, you got it.
Yay!
You totally got it.
I know you guys lived in Illinois, and then I feel like, was it from there just moved to Tennessee?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yay!
I was like, that's a state I've never even been to, I don't think. I'll say I lived there.
But you've taken you've gotten piano lessons from then.
Like,
how are they?
But I'm still, he's great. He's a great teacher. I'm a fast learner. I took piano when I was younger.
Oh, great.
I wasn't amazing at it, and I didn't stick with it, but I kind of the basics, which is what he was teaching me, came back to me fast. And he was like, wow, you're a fast learner.
Maybe you guys can start your own little band. Ooh.
Yeah. I don't think people want that, but
not gonna have a family band.
Turn me off, turn the volume down.
Well, let's dive into our first set of questions then, the reintroductions. And we can take a minute if we want to review your questions or anything like that, or your answers. Okay. I thought it would be fun so the first question that says, my name is, and right now I feel, to do a motion that shows what you're feeling for one of the emotions. It can any sort of physical action that kind of demonstrates what you're feeling right now. And I can go first. All right. So my name is Louise, and right now I feel curious, anxious, and excited.
Love that.
I live in San Francisco with my younger sister, Helen, and our roommate, Esther. We call ourselves the Golden Girls. I am a business owner, a podcast host, an Asian American, a woman, a sister, a daughter of Chinese immigrant and refugee parents, a personal development junkie, and an inspiring creative. I am driven by this sense of mission and purpose that we all have our most loving, authentic, playful self that has been traumatized through family, society, education, and oppressive narratives. And it is the work of our lives to get back to the most true version of ourselves and to also help others do the same. If I could have dinner with any three people, it would be Brene Brown, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and I can't decide between these two, either The Rock or Will Smith. I'm going to say Will Smith. It's a hard choice.
Oh, I love it. That's great. When you did the thing that excited, so I just have to one emotion that I do that to.
Awesome.
Is that right? I just pick one?
Yeah, whatever one feels the most true to you right now. Unless you want to do one for each one, whatever works. That's flexible. And then after you do your part, and we'll do this for each section, we can have a discussion on any curious questions that come about from the other person, and then we'll discuss a little bit, and we'll move on.
Right. Okay. So my name is Alison, and I feel hopeful and frustrated. I live in Franklin, Tennessee with my husband and 3 daughters. I am a wife, mother, homeschool mom, massage therapist, health coach, Pure Barre enthusiast, and friend. I am driven by this sense of mission and purpose to follow Jesus. If I could have dinner with any 3 people, this is always a very hard question for me because I'm like, so many. But right now, it would be my closest friends who I miss dearly. I haven't seen them in a while. My dad as a kid, because I could buy him whatever he wanted on the menu because I know he didn't have money. And I would ask him to tell me about his life so far so I could know what shaped him as a man. Like, I would love that. It's just hard to, he's just quiet. So I would love to know more stories. And then my mom's mom, she died when my mom was 17, so I never met her, but I would love to know what she was like. If she was anything like my mom, she was a hoot. I'd imagine if the 3 of us were together, there'd be a lot of laughter. So I'm curious what her mom was like. Be fun. And then, I think that's it. I was about to move on to the next category.
Yep, that is it. How long have you been homeschooling your girls now?
So when we moved here in 2015 to Tennessee, that was my first year. And the very next year, I put them both back into public school because I was like, I can't do this. I was so in over my head. It was my first year. I didn't really know anybody. And I feel like successful homeschool, you got to be connected. But we weren't connected yet. My husband was on tour, 10 days on, 10 days off. So he was gone a lot. We had actually just lost a baby that summer. And so my physical body was going through all sorts of just imbalances. So it was just a rough year. So they went back to school for 2 years. And so my husband travels a lot. And so we would be going with him and we would get notices that, hey, this is going to lead to truancy if you keep missing days. And we just decided we just need the freedom and we need the flexibility to up and go with him or to travel with him or whatever it is. So that was so fun. That was a big reason we moved to that.
You'll teach the girls on the road and
or not. We'll just be able to take that week off, but maybe we make up for it over summer break, or
totally.
You can move it around during the year. They kind of, here in Tennessee, you're just required to report 180 days of school. And so that can be done at any point throughout the year. You just have to make sure that you do that many days and you report the grades and they're still so young, that it's fun, it's playful, that's the beauty of it is you can learn through experiences. And so it's been great.
Totally. The perspective they must have with being on the road. That must be so unique.
Oh yeah. They meet a ton of people.
Around different people, they're people that are different ages than them. That's so good for kids.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Our 12-year-old is 12 going on 35.
Yeah. She sings too, right?
They both do. They both sing. And I think the baby sings too.
You're the only one that doesn't sing in the family.
I'm the only one that doesn't sing. That's okay. I play the radio.
Yeah, you're talking about your parents. Are they, so they're both around still?
Yep. So they're not married anymore. Mom is remarried. Dad is not. But they live in the same town. They still have each other's backs. If any, you know what I mean? You can tell in talking to them that there's still a love and respect for each other there. Yeah. So we could gather on Christmas or whatever and all be in the same room and it's fine, so.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. That was about when when I met you. So I was probably 19. Oh, wow. Is that right? Wait, 21. I'm almost 40. Is that 21 years?
You were definitely 19 when you met us. Yeah.
I'd be homeschooling if I can't do that simple math. It was somewhere around 20 years. Yeah.
I would have loved to know my dad younger too, because both my parents being from such different cultures, first of all, and having lived such full different lives before they came to the States. So much of what they had to endure to get here. I'm like, gosh, what were they both like before all of that?
Right. The things they saw and the things that left impressions on them, and truly like the things that shaped them as your mom and dad,
Yeah, I'm trying to spend time with them now where if we're together as a family, like ask them to tell a story, what their lives were like back then, and record it on my phone, things like that. Because otherwise, I'm not going to be able to remember even if they tell me, right?
Where's Helen?
So she and I live in San Francisco.
She lives with you. That's who. Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
So she's lived here. So I've lived in San Francisco about 10 years. She's lived here about 5 now.
Okay.
And we have a roommate that's lived with us for 2.5 years, and she's wonderful. She's almost like a third sister. We call ourselves the Golden Girls.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love it.
It's a lot of fun. It was definitely challenging for sure when we first started living together. Living together just exacerbates so many things that we didn't expect.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm dealing with that right now with a 12 and 10-year-old who share a room and want to get away from each other. I'm like, Lord, please let there be a day that they love each other and want to be roommates. Choose to be roommates.
Totally. And they're pretty close in age. Yeah. Helen and I are 16 months apart. We were at each other's throats, I feel like, for a good portion of our childhood. And then, and then when we were living together again for the first time, it was like, is one of us going to get out of this alive?
Right.
And your youngest just turned 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So
1-year-old, 10-year-old, and 12-year-old.
Yeah. Do the older two help out with Liv?
So much. It is a completely different experience than when I had a toddler and a baby. And I mean, not that Ben wasn't helpful, but he was just gone working. And so now we kind of rotate, and she takes 2 naps a day. So I try to run any errands when she's napping. The girls are totally, I was 12 when I was babysitting. So, and she's sleeping. So, but yeah, they've been so helpful.
Oh, thank goodness.
It's a dream. The baby has 3 moms.
Right? No shortage of people watching over her.
Not at all.
Oh, that was a fun little reintroduction to our lives right now.
That's right. Can we go back for a sec?
Sure, yeah.
You had said that you own your own company for or if you've never had a real job for the last 10 years. I wanted to hear more about that. Because you're not with Up With People anymore.
No, that was for, maybe a little under a year after college. Okay. So that was that. And then I worked for Colorado Ballet back in Denver for a season. Okay. I was their events manager, and that was when the last time the recession happened. So I was laid off at the end of at the end of the season, and then moved to San Francisco shortly after that, and spent some time freelancing and trying different things, doing events here, doing events there, for probably a good solid 4 years. The thing that was really challenging was that I didn't want to go into an office. I didn't really love the idea of having a traditional job. And I wanted a lifestyle that offered me flexibility and freedom, and to still do work that I loved. And that was the challenge around figuring out how to do that.
Yes.
So about 4 years ago, I really decided to invest and commit to having my own business as an event producer. Wow. So that's what I've been doing for the past 4 or 5 years. Specifically
with who? Or are you just freelance? Someone has an event and they can call you to help with all the business.
Yep. So I work with mainly nonprofits and social good organizations. It's usually multi-day conferences or a fundraiser, and they need someone to project manage and produce the whole conference. Okay. So depending on how large the conference is, it might just be me working on it, or I may hire on subcontractors to support me with it. Yeah, and it's been a wild ride. It's been a crazy wild ride. I've worked with some amazing organizations. I've gotten to travel a lot of places. That's been a big reason why I've been able to travel, is because of a lot of my clients do conferences internationally. So that's been really amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. And again,
so grown up. You're so cool.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So that's been good. Obviously things look really different right now. We can get into that when we get into what is our life looking like right this moment.
Congratulations on making, what you wanted to do happen, and it's a risk. It's a risky thing to start your own business and create your own freedom and within that. So yeah, way to go.
Thank you. And maybe someday if a dream, amazing job drops in my lap, I'm open to that. But yeah, having the flexibility and the freedom to kind of choose the people I want to work with and set my own schedule and choose the projects I want to work on. It's really hard to go back from that. So,
oh yeah,
doing your own thing too. So,
yes. My husband worked in an office for a while, and he's just nothing about him, not one single fiber in his body should be in an office. I mean, I was like, you got to just take a risk, and you love music. We just have to figure this out. Because one of his coworkers took him out. He's like, hey man, can I take you out for like some ice cream? Ben's like, sure. And he said, so I just wanted to tell you, like when we're in the office, you probably shouldn't hum. And, when we're in meetings, you probably shouldn't lean back in your chair, and like all of these office etiquette things. And Ben's like, I don't belong here. Like I need to be making music. Like I can't fit in this box. So
he couldn't be himself.
No, he couldn't.
So he didn't always do music full time. I didn't realize that.
No, he had it when we were first married. He worked like plant ops at the college we lived at because we were like dorm parents. And so it was just whatever we could do to make money. So he did that. And then he worked for advancement at the college. So in the beginning, it was him literally sitting in an office making calls, or maybe it was admissions, but he was trying to recruit for the school in a cubicle. And he's like, you guys, let me go out and do concerts and recruit that way and be face to face with people and get applications and give tours. Like me sitting here is not going to help. And so it worked. He went out and then we were getting a paycheck from that, and he was able to do some concerts. And so it worked, but it was a risk, and we were scared because we were like newly married, making our own money and had bills.
That was a risk for sure to step out on that. Wow. How long has his band been around then?
So it used to be called the Least of These. Now it's Citizen Way. And it was like right around when we got married. So like almost, we've been married 17 years this summer, but I would say it's about 16 that he's been in the band. So,
man, a risk that was the right move.
Yes, for sure.
Let's go into the next section. Okay. So small group era, 20 years ago now, pretty much. My goodness. My impression of you during that time was that you were a fun-loving, beautiful, cool Christian woman and self-confident in a way that I aspired towards. Mm-hmm. My favorite memories being in small group, I have a couple. One was when we were TPing the boys' house. And
that was one of my memories.
Oh my gosh. We went out into the middle of the night and went to all the boys' houses, and he beat the crap out of them. That was such a fun night. I just remember laughing so hard.
It was such a good influence.
You were such a positive role model. So that one, and then also when you surprised us and showed up to our graduation. I remember distinctly we were walking down to the stadium where we were supposed to all be seated, and everyone sitting in the stands was where all friends and family were sitting. And I don't know who I saw. I might have someone from Summit, one of the leaders I saw and waved to them, and you were sitting next to them and you waved back at me, and I was like, I just remember this moment of like, oh my gosh, and like while I was walking to my seat, just feel like, oh my gosh, Allison's here.
That makes it worth it.
Oh, it was
right there.
It was just like, oh hi, there's someone from Summit.
You're like, Allison! Oh,
yeah, that was a pretty amazing moment.
So was that 2003? Okay, so I wonder, wow, I was newly probably, or maybe almost married. Okay, that's crazy. That was so long ago.
I know. I remember you telling us at that visit that you were probably going to marry Ben. I remember that.
Wow. And I did.
You did. Yep. That I remember it was, we were like, how's Ben? And you said, I think I'm going to marry him. And
I did like 3 months later.
Yep, pretty much. You were right about that. Mm-hmm. So being in small group provided me a community to belong to in a place that I felt safe. If I could go back and change anything about who I was back then, it would be a greater love and trust in myself that didn't depend on others' validation or need to belong, and that I would have in general put myself out there, not necessarily in Summit, but just that period of my life, I felt like I was hiding a lot, and that I wanted to feel like I fit in and that I was safe, because I was in a place that I didn't naturally fit in just by how I looked in general, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I would have changed and would have liked to work on a little bit more.
Yeah. Wow. They're good, thoughtful answers.
Okay,
so my impression of you during the small group era was you were sweet, innocent, and thoughtful. My favorite memories of being in small group was just spending time with you all. Sleepovers, TPing the boys, which I don't know if you remember this, but I retell this story. I have to several people. We were TPing and you had an empty roll. You just had the carton. After all the TP's gone, and you're like, Alison, what should I do with this? I'm like, we're TPing, throw it wherever you want. But I love that you asked that. And I was like, oh, that's an example of your innocence.
Yes. I was like, I know we've been TPing, but should I do something responsible with this toilet roll?
Right. You didn't know what to do with it. I'm like, just throw it wherever you want. And then studying God's word together, setting goals to go to Mexico together, which we never ended up doing. Remember, we started a Mexico box,
yes,
and we had like $48 in it. We were wanting to send all 8 of us to Mexico with that money.
Yes.
And then we couldn't, because it was the end of I was moving away. We're like, well, we can't go to Mexico on $48. So we just bought pizza or something.
I know.
Or, cake.
That little shoebox, and we'd be like, Mexico, Mexico.
Mexico. Our chant. I know. Yes. Okay. Leading small group taught me the importance of allowing yourself to be known, imperfections and all. If I could change anything about who I was back then, it would be to have freed myself from the pressure of thinking I needed to know everything in order to have influence and anything of value to say. Always felt like I needed to know all the answers or I would just be discredited, So
there were times that you felt like you didn't have all the answers and that you needed to for us.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I remember when I wanted to become a small group leader, I asked Karen, if you remember Karen, I said, I don't know the Bible. How am I supposed to be someone's Bible study leader? I don't have all the answers. And, she could reassure me all day. I didn't need to. But it just felt like a big responsibility. I was your influence. And what if I said something that wasn't right? So it would almost paralyze me from saying anything at all, because I would second guess everything. And the big thing, I think I was 3 years your small group leader. And I think I just became more confident when I was in high school, I just wanted someone to love me and invest in me and spend time with me and listen to me. And if nothing else, I can offer that. So let's just start there, and then we obviously spent time in the Bible too, but I think I made it just about that. And there was so much pressure there because I felt like I didn't know anything.
I think from our perspective, we would have never thought, oh, Alison doesn't know what she's talking about ever.
Doesn't have it together, right? But that inner critic always saying you're not enough, you're not prepared.
Most of all, it was the way you loved us and the way you were being with us. Anytime we were together with you, that was ultimately the most important thing. The way you modeled that was, you could have said, the most, amazing thing about scripture
right.
That wouldn't have mattered if you didn't have the heart that you did with us.
Right. And you may not remember any of that, but you remembered that we spent time together. So I think in hindsight, I'm that's what mattered. I was present. I was there. I was available.
You were such a dynamo, just this beautiful, confident, just Alison is so amazing.
It's amazing that's what you viewed, because inside I was not feeling that, So to hear you say that, you thought I was confident.
Yeah.
Because in my head, I was I need to hide. I'm so can I walk into a room and be wanted? Those thoughts still creep into my brain.
It's funny how that never goes away though, that those voices and that inner critic. And in terms of, you said sweet and innocent, I think a lot of that was around this feeling of not wanting to rock the boat, wanting to keep myself safe. And in order to stay safe, you have to kind of stay small a little bit.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that was at that time in my life, a lot of that was what was driving the way I interacted and connected with people. When you're 14, definitely, it's already challenging enough, right? But
right. That was the hardest age, 14, 15.
Oh, right? My goodness. Yeah, is it easy for anyone?
Yeah, I don't know. My husband said it was like the time of his life. So I'm like, well, I guess for guys it can be.
Oh, geez, what's that like?
I know. What's that like to go through high school and love it?
I know, right? And I was so grateful for Summit and you, because they really did give me that like safe space, even though I, didn't know who I was fully in that space, but it gave me that haven that, felt safe, but I think also in some ways was a easy place to I don't know if hide's the right word, but maybe. Yeah. So grateful for that time.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
All right. Our next section.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have the past 10 years. I am most proud of creating a business that gives me the flexibility to work with the clients I'm passionate about and that provides me the lifestyle I enjoy. Doing the personal growth work to heal so that I can really thrive, and my relationships.
That's good.
The biggest change since being in Alison's small group is I don't call myself a Christian. And the 3 pictures, I'll show you those real quick. So this is one of the conferences that I produced last year in Stockholm.
Okay.
So it's for an organization called Wikimedia Foundation. So they administer Wikipedia.
Okay.
So I produce their conference every year. It's canceled for this year. Yeah, but I've been lucky enough that I've been able to work with them the past 3 years on their conference.
So that's got to be pretty time consuming, I'm imagining.
Yeah, definitely time consuming. It's definitely full on when it gets close to showtime. I'm going to show you the cutest pictures this is some hippos from a safari I took about 2 years ago. They're the cutest things. Awesome. I went to Africa after I had done a conference for a client, and went on a safari and was with my best friend who lives in England, and then my colleague who I'm actually really close friends with. We went to Botswana and Zimbabwe and did a safari. If you ever get the chance to do a safari, it is magical. Change your life.
The closest thing I've done to that is like Disney. Disney safari.
Yeah, Animal Kingdom. Yeah.
Closest I've gotten to that. So
yes, if you think that's amazing. Ooh. I was just going to show a quick little clip from a dance class. Yeah, it has become just like a huge part of my life. I'm really, I think.
Wait, is that a class you were in?
Yes, a class I was taking. So in the
where
white
are you?
hair. I'm in the white.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
Wait, well, first of all, your hair looks so long.
Pretty long there. Yeah, it's pretty long right now too because I haven't gotten a haircut. So
you're like so much better than me. I don't even care saying it. It's just true.
You're so sweet. I don't know about that.
Now I'm really embarrassed about the YouTube video I told you to go watch of me. You're going to go, oh, Alison, sweet girl.
Stop it. Don't even say that.
You're so good.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, so dance was something that I was always just so passionate about, but because I just wasn't able to do it because our parents didn't have the money to put us in dance, and it felt like a creative thing I wanted to always explore, but I never was able to do that until I was off of my own and able to really have the freedom and autonomy to decide what I wanted my life to look like. So that's been a big part of my life, to really explore my creative side. Doing this podcast has been that endeavor.
Right.
Doing all sorts of creative, fun hobbies. That's been a big part of, I would say, even just my healing journey of my life. So that's been big. And the ability to travel and live the life that I've always dreamed about in a lot of ways has been really remarkable. And then of course my business. Yeah, those are kind of the images of what my life was like before this all happened.
Incredible.
So,
that's so incredible.
If I could share 3 truths with the world, it would be there is a more authentic version of you that is underneath all that you believe to be true about yourself. What others think of you, whether positive or negative, ultimately has nothing to do with you. And using play as a lens to view life makes everything better.
Wow, I like that. That's really good. Really good. Should I go to mine?
Sure, yes. Go to yours and then we can discuss.
So I am most proud of overcoming the fear of having another baby after a miscarriage. Most proud of following dreams, even when there was a risk of making no sense. And I put CENTS, ha ha ha. I thought I was funny. And I was going to take it out and because Ben didn't laugh when I read that. He was just like, oh, I get it now. But you got to keep that in there. I think this is what happens when you're like, homeschool mom. You just try to self-laugh. And deciding to homeschool my kids. Those are three things I'm proud of. The biggest change I've seen in myself since being your small group leader is I have more confidence in who God says he is. Just life has happened and man, he has shown up. Okay, pictures. All right, well, this is kind of funny and really a really bad picture. But it's a picture of my family because it's kind of my life. And if you can see, we're all holding toilet paper. So we live in this neighborhood there's a grocery store, and we have a little neighborhood page. And I said, I love you all so much, but I've not once been able to buy toilet paper in our grocery store. Not once.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, does anybody have a square to spare? It's kind of a nod to Seinfeld. Yeah. And there were like 4 or 5 people within 10 minutes that brought us toilet paper. I was just asking for a roll because Ben kept getting, he was stranded on the toilet. So they come and we end up with
Was he really stranded on the toilet?
Well, it's weird because 2 nights before he's like, I keep having this nightmare. I'm going to be stranded on the toilet because we just had Kleenex boxes in our bathrooms. That's all we had because we could buy Kleenex. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm just going to post that he's stranded. He was afraid and now it's actually happening. And he was. But we ended up with 20 rolls of toilet paper. It was incredible.
Wow. Neighbors step up. My goodness.
They totally stepped up. And then this is a picture of a lot of people, but they're what I call my village. So it would be like a small group. So there's 6 of us families and all of our kids. And we've just been through life. And I've only known them for 5 years, but things from me overcoming my fears and them walking with me with the whole I had some scares with my pregnancy with Liv, thinking that I was miscarrying. And they kind of encouraged me to hold on to hope because that wasn't what it was. And we didn't know yet. So they knew they were speaking to my fear because my fear tends to I just anticipate the worst. So
of course. Oh, how lovely.
One of the kiddos he has hypoplastic left heart syndrome and he needed one of his 3 surgeries that are recommended. So we live in Tennessee. That was in Michigan. We all just caravanned up there. We were there for the surgery. It's things like that. We're going to be there for each other. So they're my village. And then this last picture. Okay. So it's Liv. This is our third kiddo. She's wearing an Urban Market onesie, which shout out to Urban Market because we love food. We love good, nutritious food. That's a huge part of both, my husband and I both. So she's wearing a onesie to represent Urban Market. And
she's so cute.
I called her our urban baby because that's pretty much all I ate when I was pregnant. Because I didn't want to cook. Nothing ever sounded good, but anything from Urban Market did. So she's our urban baby. If I could share 3 truths with the world, it would be, there is absolute truth. Choosing kindness, this is my second one. Choosing kindness includes kindness towards those who don't think like you. Agreeing with people doesn't equal kindness, as that is deceitful, but being truthful with gentleness and love does. So that's my second truth. And then my third one is God does all that he does from a place of love. He pursues us, fights for us, and protects us because he loves us. I think that's the last thing in that category.
Yeah. That village that you were showing, they're all part of your small group, you said?
Yes.
Together?
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. We found them pretty early on when we moved here too. I mean, we really it was just so great. Because they say usually when you up and move, give yourself about 2 years before you feel like it's home and you find community. And thankfully it happened pretty quick. So
thank goodness. You got to find that community.
Yeah. They're amazing.
Yeah. I feel like, moving to San Francisco, even though it was 10 years ago now, that was definitely the hardest thing for the first few years because especially a big city where there's just so many different kinds of people, that sense of community. And that is one thing that I think was so wonderful about the Summit Timberline experience of community, right? And just knowing that everyone there has your back and that
it was a family.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. And I think that is challenging to find sometimes outside of those kinds of communities, and something I definitely struggled to find in some capacity here in San Francisco. And I have that more or less now, but it took a while. And everyone is definitely in sort of different pockets of life, so it's not the same kind of community that I experienced with Summit, and that I would probably find in a church. But yeah, I think there's something so valuable about that. About having that sort of extended family outside of your own family.
Yeah. You were saying when you shared, since being in small group together, you no longer would call yourself a Christian. What do you call yourself? Like, how do you ask that? What do you believe in? What do you believe in?
Sure. Yeah, I believe in God. I think that there is something greater than us outside of ourselves. I struggle with putting a label on it and putting a specific set of parameters on exactly what that looks like. And so I identify probably more as spiritual, in the sense that I believe that life is a spiritual practice, and that takes healing, that takes being really intentional about your values and what you really believe, and getting back to that sort of whole loving version of yourself that you were always meant to be before trauma, before society changed who you thought yourself to be. So, and I do think there is something, I definitely draw on something greater than myself when I am working through a spiritual practice. But yeah, I couldn't put a label on it. And I think I ultimately really struggled with the narrative that accepting Jesus into your heart is the only way to be saved. And I think that was probably the thing. If that is the one, difference in the one idea that Christianity really hinges on, it was something that I couldn't totally bring myself to get behind. But I love how Jesus lived his life, and I really think, and I have my sister Helen's a Christian, my roommate's a Christian. And I'm super close to quite a few Christians in my life. But yeah, in terms of how I call myself, spiritual.
Right. Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. When you said, so you said you're more confident in who you believe God to be, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah. So my husband grew up as a pastor's kid. And I think you go to church for your whole life and you hear kind of the same messages, the same sermons. In a way, it can get a little stale. And there was a turn in his life for sure where I was like, man, he's like hungry to read the Bible. What is this like? It's not just I'm going to do my 10-minute devotionals because that's what you do as a good Christian.
Yeah.
But it was like he couldn't stop. It was like he was literally searching for a treasure. And so, of course, I'm asking questions like, what's this spark? Like, he's like, I just have so many questions. And the answers that I'm finding in the Bible are blowing my mind. And I was like what? What have I not already heard, A lot of times we read the Bible and it can just be a little stale and it feels disconnected from our life because it feels so old. Okay, so Adam, I'm just going to do a quick genealogy, Adam to Noah. Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan. I'm going to mess up these names. Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah. Okay. Adam means man, Seth, appointed, Enosh, mortal, Kenan, sorrow, Mahalalel, the blessed God, Jared, shall come down, Enoch, teaching, Methuselah, his death shall bring, Lamech, despairing, Noah, comfort and rest. And do you know that actually sends a message? Man was appointed mortal sorrow, but the blessed God shall come down, teaching his death shall bring the despairing comfort and rest. I mean, those are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years between one man to the next. Right. And each name meant something and spoke something. It's things like that where all of a sudden it's like the Bible comes three-dimensional. It's just not this flat, like this is what we do to be good or to feel good about ourselves. But he has a story. We're a part of it. He loves us. Old Testament to New Testament doesn't matter. It all gives us the hope of Jesus. Even though Jesus came in the New Testament, he spoke about so much in the Old Testament, which I never realized really. The Old Testament is the New Testament concealed, and the New Testament is the Old Testament revealed. So these are things that, it's starting to perk my interest more. I'm like,
Sure.
So like I already believe in Jesus, but now it's like his word is just giving me life and hope and a new sense of redemption. Why did blood have to be shed? Well, life is in the blood. Just new meanings of really what I think should be foundational to our faith, like understanding, but I just missed them. And then life happens, you have a miscarriage. And when that happened with me, I almost died. It was, I wasn't in the hospital. I was at home, and he was with me, and there was just he's here. And we've seen, Ben and I have both seen actual spiritual evil, physical presence type stuff that we're like, what do we do with that? And what is this? So I could go on and on and on, but those sorts of things just really were like, man, this is no joke.
Yeah.
And we'll lead into other things
Totally
as you lead us to our next thing. But even just, it's like, I can't deny the fact that there's just evil in this world. I want to believe it's just all good. I want to believe there's no evil. I would love to believe that that's the world we live in, but we don't. What does God do with evil? Why is it even here? Why couldn't we just stay in that perfect garden for the,
Sure.
So all good questions in the thing. And I would say to you, if I could put my small group hat leader back, like, there's a place for you. Like, there's a place for your questions. There's a place for everything that ever, do you know what I mean? I feel like the disservice that church has done for a lot of people is like, there's no place for your questions here.
Yeah.
Your questions don't fit here and your answers don't fit here. So you need to go away. And I was like, no, we need to be talking about this so we can grow, So.
Yeah, I definitely felt that questions didn't belong. It was more about, rather than grappling with questions, it was more about, let's get to certainty. And, you need to have more conviction and faith. I think after a while, it felt too confining for me to be able to ask those questions in that environment.
Yeah.
And it was hard after when I had decided, I think I need to explore what God looks like outside of the church for me, outside of the Christian church. It felt like a crisis. It felt like a personal crisis of
faith and
of myself. Like, who am I now? And how do I know what's right or wrong? It's like, I almost didn't have the intuition or the center that just as a human, like, it's because I had relied so much on something outside of myself to guide me and tell me what was right and what to do. I didn't have my own center. I really needed to step away. And just having explored outside of that now, it's hard to go back in the sense that I feel like there's so much to know in this world, and doing it within the Christian faith doesn't make sense anymore. But I definitely think that it is so true for people. Right. And I admire the way certain people have a relationship with Jesus. And I think that's amazing. So.
Right. Well, we personally started a home church, which is it's a few families, but we're like, man, we need to be able to engage our questions. And I mean, we can be sponges and absorb stuff at church services, but I was like, man, I want to be able to interact with the scriptures. I want to interact with my questions. I want to interact with my doubts. And there's really not a whole lot of time to do that when you're in like a church service, which is why, they say to do small groups. But I think that's where we've maybe failed a lot of people as a church, is not allowing there to be questions about stuff, because it doesn't all make sense. And we don't all know everything, we just don't. But sometimes I think people talk like they do. Oh, there's room at the table for your questions and your doubts and your fears and all that. I mean, if somebody told me I couldn't be a part of the church because I lean toward fear, like that's always been my, I just have anxiety and fear, and I need to deal with that. Now, thankfully, I've never, like that village, I mean, they're like, we're going to walk through this with you. We're not going to dismiss you. Bring that. It's a command to not do it, but that's for our own good. So let's just sit with you in this. And I'm like, I wish there was a little bit more of that going on, and not just get away. I don't know how to put you in my box. That's kind of sad.
Let's sit in that uncertainty together.
Yeah. Yeah. A
Yeah. And
posture of humility, you know, so.
Totally. And that's beautiful. I'm so glad you have that with that
Yeah.
community. Yeah.
Oh,
And I have found that there's the different schools of thought I've explored and the personal development work I've explored. It really does allow for those questions. And I really do. I think ultimately that's really what I was looking for, was just a place to grapple with what does it mean to be human, and what is our sense of purpose. And yeah, and it felt like at least the conversations I was hearing in church felt confining and didn't allow for that exploration and that curiosity and that wonder. And but I'm so glad you have that. And I think that's totally exactly, a church that a lot of people can get behind.
Oh yeah. And I'm just like a little bunny trail here. Like when I watch The Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia and these movies, there's something inside me that's like that wakes up and goes, I feel like I'm a part of that in some way, somehow. And I'm like so scared. Have you seen The Lord of the Rings?
It's been a long time. And I was never like a fanatic like some people are.
And I'm not like a fanatic, but I do know that when I watched it the first time, it was like I couldn't breathe because of like, oh my gosh, is Frodo going to be okay? Is he going to make it? And you see God throughout the movie. It's beautiful. But I don't know. If you were to ask me to say, how do you view the world and like just the story of the world? I mean, it looks a lot like The Lord of the Rings in my brain, in my little tiny brain. Like I feel like I'm a character in that movie. And so I'm just like, man, it is amazing to just be able to know these two authors like C.S. Lewis and Tolkien were friends, and they'd sit and have coffee and they would talk about mull over scripture, and they came up with these movies and these books. I'm like, brilliant. Because a lot of the Christian movies kind of lose you a little bit. Like it feels more like the box thing. Whereas I'm like, the story is not that boring.
Yeah.
Like, not that boring. It's so much more incredible than that. So
much more epic than that.
Yeah. Totally.
Your miscarriage, was it always in the plan to have 3 kids? Was that for...
Yeah, so it wasn't ever really a plan. I actually thought we were good with 2. I was done. And then something just changed when the girls were, I guess they were, how old were they? 8 and 6, 8 and 5, somewhere in there. And I just was like, we both wanted another one. We just wanted another one. And so we tried. I was the healthiest I'd ever been, not just like in terms of weight or anything, but how I was eating, how I was moving. I mean, I just thought, man, this is going to be a beautiful pregnancy. Got pregnant first try and was not even on my radar that I would lose the baby. I never had any issues with fertility or miscarriage. So when that happened, I was in shock. I just felt like completely blindsided and not prepared. It wasn't on my radar. Why would that ever happen to me? When you find out, man, I've had a lot of friends that have been through this, and I'm so embarrassed that I didn't know, or remember, I do remember one friend saying, and I'm like, man, I did not show up for you. It was like, until I went through it, I didn't know how to show up for people or like care to the level I wish I would have.
But then the understanding, right?
Yes.
At the time. Mm-hmm.
Yes. But then, so that was 2015. And then come 2019, some things had happened in our life that I was like, I can't make decisions out of fear anymore. Like, I can't do that. And it's still in us to want another baby. So I'm ready to try. We had a sweet, dear friend of ours out in Modesto. Actually, we go out there quite a bit. She was a mom of 4. She had lung cancer. She dealt with that for about 5 years. And we met her kind of toward the end, like her last 2 years. Mm-hmm. And we would sit with her, and the peace that she would have. I'm like, she is looking death in the face. She knows this is where she's headed. She's got 4 children. She has a community of people, a wonderful husband. And I am sitting with her, and every time I feel the love of Jesus in her. She was like, I just want to love you. Mm-hmm. I want to serve you. I can't move much. I don't have energy. You'd have to get her in little 15-minute increments of time where she had some energy to like engage, but she would just want to sit around and like sing hymns together. And she was 1000% there, just focused in on you. And I'm like, you could be just sitting in fear and be completely disconnected to the rest of the world. But here you are being, I would think I would be mad. Like, God, don't you know I have 4 children and a husband? Like, why would you allow this? Like, I feel like I would be mad. And she just wasn't. She was like, if my story changes one person's life, of the hope that I have and the peace. I mean, she was on hospice and could barely move and talk. And she said to her brother, hey, come here. And he came close and she just said, can you lift me up? I want to hug you. Mm-hmm. She just wanted to hug him. I mean, any way she could bless people till her last breath, she did. And I'm like, that's a woman who is unafraid. Like, I'm afraid. I feared what she had would happen to me. Mm-hmm. And she actually had it and had so much peace and joy. I'm like, that's what I'm looking for. That level of peace and joy that is not bound by circumstance or death or anything. Like, I can just be free of that. And so I left that. She passed away. We flew out to her funeral, and her funeral was amazing. Like, just, I could barely breathe. I was weeping because it was tears of just thank you for teaching me that, having cancer, going through death, it doesn't have to be this like sorrowful. It is sorrowful, but like, you don't have to live like you're dying. Like, you don't have to live that way. You don't have to give that away to a disease. And I just, even in her funeral, it was such a celebration and it was just beautiful. Mm. So I was like, that's it. I'm like putting a stake in. I don't want to live my life afraid of everything all the time. So I'm like, what better place to put myself? What better vulnerable place to put myself than to walk right into what I'm afraid of? I'm afraid of getting pregnant and miscarrying and possibly dying. So if I do this and the Lord blesses me and I get pregnant, I will daily have to come to him and ask for his comfort, because we did our first ultrasound. There was no heartbeat, and things happened where I thought there's no baby. And, you saw her picture.
Yeah.
And I was encouraged to just keep hoping. Mm-hmm. But it was hard. It was a hard time.
Thank goodness you were courageous.
I know. Yeah. I look at her all the time and I was like, my goodness, when I was 6 weeks pregnant with her, I was going to not go on a trip to Canada with my husband, because I'm like, I hear people miscarry when they travel. It causes miscarriages. I shouldn't go. And he reminded me, you were going to make decisions not out of fear. Mm-hmm. Remember you said that? And I was like, all right, I'm going to go. And I went to Banff, and it was called Emerald Lake. Got on a canoe. I have pictures that I blew up. They're in her room. It was the most beautiful place I've ever been on earth. Yeah. And there was a moment when I was on that canoe where I thought to myself, I almost missed this because of fear. Mm-hmm. And that's how I'm going to feel when this baby's here, which we named Liv because she did. It's not short for Olivia. It's Liv because she did. But she and her room, I'm in there and I'm like, I almost didn't have that memory of, Emerald Lake in Banff. Mm-hmm. And I almost didn't have this baby because I was afraid. And I have 2 amazing things right in front of me because I chose not to, fear. Mm-hmm. So
good for you. In life, we can't really control a lot of the circumstances that we're handed, right? Yeah. We think we have control, but really at the end of the day, the only thing we can control is how we are being and what we choose to do with the circumstances that we're handed. That is exactly what you did.
It really did put that right in the forefront. Like, wow, even when you're not pregnant, you're not in control. Like, there was this sense of safety, not putting myself in that position of being pregnant. But again, that was a big old lie that I was in control of my life, even not pregnant. So if I'm going to trust him when I'm not pregnant, and if I'm like all of a sudden going to apply trust when I'm pregnant, why not apply that when I'm not pregnant? It's kind of blowing my mind a little bit. Like, all right.
That was just part 1 of that conversation with Alison Calhoun. Hopefully that gave you a sense of our shared past and who we are today and how we have evolved from the time that we knew each other 20 years ago. The next episode will dive into her post that she had written about coronavirus that had instigated me reaching out to her in the first place. In that episode, we'll dig a little bit deeper into our beliefs and what we each understand to be true about coronavirus. There's going to be some really interesting conversation around how Alison's religious beliefs inform what she believes about coronavirus. In that episode, I'll also dive into my own reflections around how I felt about the conversation, what I learned, and what I hope to implement into other conversations or situations. So stay tuned for that episode, and I will see you next week. Are you looking for more play in your life? Make sure you're subscribed to the Recessed Life podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or any of the podcast platforms. You can also find the video interviews on YouTube. Don't forget to leave a review. Your feedback is so important to me, and it helps others to find the podcast. You can also follow the conversation on Instagram at The Recessed Life. And lastly, you can go to therecessedlife.com where you'll find all the episodes and show notes on each of our guests. I hope this podcast helps you to become a little more playful today than you were yesterday. Until next time, don't forget to get out and play today.